We're here to talk a little bit about virtual reality. Now, the thing is with virtual reality, we have to, well, I guess the first thing we should do is just explain what virtual reality is. Now, this is also being now referred to as virtual environments. It's been around for quite a while. But basically what it is, if we really just want to kind of break it down simply, is a 3D environment or a three-dimensional world that's simulated that a user can actually interact with. So, you may have seen in the past the big clunky helmets where they're wearing goggles. They've got the big funky gloves with all the little nodes attached to them. And as they move, there's a digital representation that's also moving parallel to whatever they're doing in this virtual environment. Now, a couple of the main things that you really want to have it, I guess opinions differ on what exactly constitutes a virtual reality or virtual environment experience. But in general, it should have 3D images that appear to be life-size to the perspective of the user. That doesn't mean they actually have to be life-size, just to the perspective of the user, which is why a lot of times you will see the goggles, because they can portray a larger image through the goggles and make things seem more life-size instead of actually having to display a life-size image. And then also the software, the components of the virtual reality technology or virtual experiment or virtual environment technology should be able to track the user's motions. So being able to, let's say with the helmet as an example, be able to turn your head from left to right, what the user would be seeing when they were turning their head from left to right would be a panning view of that 3D virtual environment. So for example, if I were to take my head and swipe it from left to right, the view that I would be getting through the virtual reality goggles or virtual environment goggles would be panning whatever the 3D environment is from left to right as I panned my head. Now, not counter to this, but along with this would also be the movements of other body parts. So, for example, to swipe a hand in the virtual reality space, to physically do that would also have a parallel representation in the 3D environment. And the idea behind this really being is that we can use these to get into all sorts of simulated worlds. And some futurists believe that in the future that'll be really just kind of next level internet, basically, where instead of having millions of websites, we have millions of these digital environments, basically, where say we want to get into Fiji one day in a virtual reality environment, and then the next day we're standing over the top of a volcano looking down in, all the while doing all of this from our living room at home. Now there are a lot of other applications for this. I know one that's kind of used, and not really fully to this degree, but and I guess it's not totally virtual reality, it's on part simulation, is what pilots in the Air Force use. They've got flight simulators where they're actually getting in a physical representation of a cockpit, and they have controls, and as they move, they are in essence in a virtual replication of a plane and a flight simulation. And that's one of the closer things that we have that's used really commonly today. Now that's in short, that's what virtual reality is. It's a 3D world that we can interact with by components that we would be physically wearing. So really, it's very cool technology, and it's going to be exciting in the next 10 or 20 years to see where it gets taken. And anyways, that's it for virtual reality today.